I call the Planning Commission meeting for June 12th, 2025 to order. We'll begin with the pledge. Jackie, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Haddon?
Here.
Mr. Perkovich?
Excused.
Mr. Rossetti?
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Here.
Mr. Varga?
Here.
Mr. Crocker?
Here.
Mr. Cook?
Here. On tonight's agenda, we have one public hearing, and we will follow this format. First, the applicant will have the opportunity to explain what they would like to do at a particular location. Second, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this proposal will be given the opportunity to do so. Finally, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be afforded the time to do so, or some people may just have questions. But before we move on, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, May 22nd, 2025.
So moved?
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Abstain?
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. With that, we have a conditional use permit to allow a vehicle service and repair facility at 7722 and 7730 Lakeshore Boulevard and 6153 Dawson Boulevard. Is that applicant here? Please come up. And we're going to do the conditional use permit first, so please talk about that.
Me first. I didn't know if the city was going to. So this is for a facility that is a tire service store and also does mechanical work on cars. It is set up so that, like many new car dealerships, that if a customer drives in, that they would pull into a designated bay where they would
You got to get into the mic
where they would evaluate.
and real
the
quick,
car.
just give us your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe Myers, the architect for the project, 38030 2nd Street in Willoughby.
Thank you. You're on now.
So when customers would arrive, they would pull in a designated door. They evaluate the car. The customer goes to the waiting room, and the staff then takes a car to a parking space or brings it to the bay to be worked on. So it's primarily the vehicles are driven around the site by the staff themselves. They had a conditional use permit for this a little over a year ago. Some things came up that they didn't get started on, and right away it expired, and so we're back again tonight to renew the conditional use permit.
Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to speak for this proposal? Anybody wishing to speak against this proposal? This public hearing is closed. Larry, anything from the administration?
As Joe Myers indicated, this was previously approved in January of 2024. It expired, so they needed to come back. All we have are the 4 conditions that were previously approved.
Thank you. Anything from the commission members? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with 4 conditions?
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2, a preliminary site plan of a car wash, Clean Express Auto Wash at 9361 Menor Avenue. That applicant has asked that that remain on the table. So we're going to go move into an architectural review of an industrial building at 8618 Twin Brook Road. I'll entertain a motion to remove that from the table.
So moved?
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes, thank you. Come on up, name and address. Tell us a little bit about Twin Brook.
It's Tony Cerny, Architectural Design Studios, 620 East Smith Road, Medina. Project that you looked at last time. Basically, it's the same except across the back where there was some concern about the lack of variation to the facade. We added the windows across the back, essentially putting in 2 windows up high into each of the shorter bays. There were 3 items on here from Architecture Review. The first one, I thought we had addressed this last time, the split face block on the front part of the building where we have it set at 4 feet high and administration comes back and saying 7'4", and we can put it at 7'4". I just think the building comes off better with that being at 4 foot high. I thought everybody was in agreement with that last time, but if you decide you wanted a 7'4", we can do that. But my preference, I think the building is better. If we can have the Nichi-Ha panels with just a 4 foot wainscot on them. No problem with screening any future HVAC equipment, should there be any. We don't anticipate any. And the last part is just a statement. Those were all the colors that were approved.
Thank you, Larry. Anything from administration?
Just those three conditions.
Anything from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Varga?
it sometimes falls to me to make these comments, but I don't have a problem with the lower masonry at that raised area because it emphasizes the difference between that section and the rest of the building. So I could live with the way it's shown. But that's my personal opinion. But,
If you want to make a change to that condition, that's,
well, if there's any other comments.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in agreement with Mr. Varga. I think what they would like to do is fine. I think it looks nice.
Okay, so then let's
Get rid of number one?
strict that one.
Yeah, let's, anything else?
No.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with two conditions.
second.
You gotta make it.
Two conditions, eliminating the first condition.
You have to specify the height.
Yeah, I guess,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
well,
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question is, and maybe to Mr. Resser as well, if you eliminate that entirely, does it create a bit of a,
No, not entirely, just the way they show it, which is,
so the split face block in the mezzanine portion of the building at the north shall be a minimum of 7 feet 4 inches. Why not just modify that to what the gentleman stated for, I forgot, sir,
4
what you-
feet?
It's 4
feet.
feet, but I mean, it's essentially as we've submitted it is what we're asking for.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a condition because otherwise you would condition everything else about the,
right.
Drawing.
We're just eliminating a condition, we're accepting.
As long as well, the reason is that we make a clear record, so that's why I'm trying to facilitate a little discussion here. It's not to be, too picky, but is it clear then that, well, maybe our assistant clerk can make it so that the record is clear as to what is being approved? So, because remember, a year from now, people look at things, 2 years from now, they look at things, and we've got a muddled record, so.
Mr. Chairman, possibly we can recommend modifying that, strike the 7 foot 4 inches high, make it 4 foot high as proposed.
Yes, that's the idea, to make the nice, clean
That's fine.
record. So-
Okay, then there's still three conditions.
Okay, so look,
So then we're going to move to approve with three conditions. The first condition modified to 4 foot high,
As proposed?
As proposed.
as proposed.
Who's my
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rozsetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thank you.
thank you very much.
Under new business, final site plan of a vehicle service and repair facility, 7722, 7730 Lakeshore Boulevard, and 6153 Dawson Boulevard. Please come up, talk about the site plan now.
Okay, Joe Myers, the architect for the project. Again, the site plan, at the time they got the conditional use permit, the site plan itself was approved, or at least a preliminary approval. We've got more engineering done, so that we're here for the final approval tonight. We've been through the staff report and the comments. We don't have any issue with any of those. They asked us to come back for architectural, which I think is the next thing on the agenda, but the site plan, we're good with.
Thank you. Larry, anything from administration?
Just the conditions that are within the report.
Anything from the commission members? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with the 7 conditions.
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rozsetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes,
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. One more time. We have an architectural review of a vehicle service and repair facility at 7722, 7730 Lakeshore Boulevard, and 6153 Dawson Boulevard. Tell us a little bit about the architectural.
Okay, so the building, I don't, do you all have the rendering that, is okay, good. It's composed of, an L-shaped building, would be, and we submitted, photographs of all the materials. If we have actual samples, if you wanted to, see anything more on any of them. But it's the wood panel design across the top with the trim dividing it, a vertical siding in the center, black canopies over the windows, and then kind of a contemporary stone, lining the bottom of it. And then the main focus building where we want the people to drive to has a black standing seam metal roof.
Thank you. Larry, anything from administration?
Yes, on your desk you have a revised building elevation dated June 11th. That has eliminated that section above the garage doors. It would basically be what was called out in condition number 2. That's been corrected. It's now showing the stone over there.
It was originally proposed with a soldier course of stone across the overhead doors, and we revised it to more like the windows on the side. It'd be a cast stone, like a limestone type cap across the top of the doors rather than a soldier course. So it's smooth and clean and more sleek like the rest of the building.
Thank you. Anything from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga?
It's my said, repetitive comments. There's nothing on the roof, no equipment, nothing that has to be shielded or
No,
hidden?
it would be internal equipment.
Just,
The whole roof is sloped, so there's no parapet or flat spot for equipment.
that's great, thanks.
Anything else? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with the 3 conditions.
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr. Rozzetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
We have a building addition, site alteration at 8878 East Avenue. Is that applicant here?
Yes. Still Joe Myers, the architect for this project. So this project is an addition of a warehouse to the side of the industrial building. It's a smaller addition. It seemed to me that the city's approach was that we could kind of do this administratively. They will require a variance because the building would be coming closer to this property line. It's kind of on the inside of an L-shaped building that wraps all the way around it, so it kind of goes up to the property line into a dead zone anyways. We're going to the Zoning Board of Appeals to ask for a variance for that. But in order to put the addition on the side, we're swinging the parking across the front. And it's up to the planning commission to grant a 30-foot setback for the parking if we use a mounded landscape mound between the right-of-way and the parking. So we've elected to do that. There's a landscape plan showing the landscape mound. And so if you're good with the 30-foot setback for the parking, we hopefully could approve it contingent on us getting the variance at the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Larry?
Basically, it's a small enough addition, the code allows for us to approve it administratively. The only issue here was the parking in the front setback, which falls under the Planning Commission's jurisdiction to approve with a mound and landscaping. They've met all those conditions, so we really only have the 2 conditions.
Thank you. Anything from the commission members? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with the 2 conditions.
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Hadden?
Yes.
Mr. Rozzetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Number 7, a building addition, site alteration at 7550 Tyler Boulevard. Is that applicant here?
I'm not Joe Myers. Jeff Foster, Pato Architects, 1220 West 6th Street. My turn. Okay.
your turn, yeah.
Okay, the addition, what we're here tonight is for the Rogers Company, located at 7550 Tyler Boulevard. So the project is a 45,000 square foot addition to their current facility. There was an addition that was put on in approximately 1998, which is shown where the cursor is in the center there. So this facility is purely warehouse. We really aren't adding any employees or anything along those lines, but it does allow them to greatly expand their interior operation as well. The exterior of the building, intent is to make it look like it was always there. Materials on the outside are the same as the existing. There's 2 colors of masonry split face on the existing building. We would match that on the addition, and that goes up to about 14.5 feet. And then up above that's a pre-engineered metal building. So the total eave height is approximately 29 feet around the perimeter, about 32 in the center. And it will have just 2 simple man doors and 1 overhead door facing the south.
Thank you. Larry?
Just the 4 proposed conditions.
Anything from the commission members? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with the 4 conditions.
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Rosetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thank you. Amendments to the Mentor Code of Ordinances. We've been,
Chairman, due to a conflict of interest, I'm going to step down.
thank you. Larry, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Basically, what we have provided to the commission are 2 different ordinances. One was prepared by the law department. I'll let Joe speak on that. The other one was prepared by the city manager and Kathy. The administration's version, proposed ordinance, uses the existing definitions out of Chapter 752, which was approved by council in March of this year. And we also have very specific zoning districts only, which are being proposed to allow for a short-term rental, which is the R2, the R3, and the R4 districts. The code also has a capacity limit for the city built in. So it's based off of the population and divided by 4. So there's an equal amount in each ward. So you don't have everyone going into Ward 4. They're spread out. If it's 10, each ward will, if we end up with 40 as the number, each ward could have 10 only, no more. The other thing is we are limiting the number of guests in each unit by the number of bedrooms times 2 plus an additional 3 guests. So it's all based off of the bedrooms. Parking would have to be on the property, not within the street, and there will be annual inspections that would follow the guidelines of our current rental program. The only difference would be is they'd be on an annual basis and not once every other year. That's all I have.
Thank you. I guess we'll open this up for some discussion, and if we have any questions, we'll ask them. Does anybody have anything?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Crocker?
So, just so I'm clear, what you're asking us to do here, you're asking us to look between the 2 plans that are out here and make a recommendation for one or the other, or recommend both, or so what are we looking for?
No. If I may, Mr. Chairman? I think you're way out in front of the skis on this issue, frankly. So let me just give you a little bit of foundation. What the law department submitted is just an example of what a code looks like. The administration prepared something without, our input with what another code would look like. You can the point being, the regulation should follow policy and what the objectives of the city are. So without getting too specific, I can tell you, every time you pull someone aside, you're going to get a different idea as to whether they should be permitted at all, or if they should be permitted where. Why, other practical other practical issues relative to regulations, health, safety, occupancy, those are a lot more downhill, frankly. I think, again, you're just getting way out in front of yourselves. So we've heard various ideas that maybe they serve a market demand. If so, what's the market demand, and how to use structure regulations to be specific to that market demand. Because I can share with you tonight, if you want, we do have some data. I can't share you where that came from, but suffice to say it came from tax information. So even though they're prohibited, we do have some operators, and again, maybe we'll ascertain that through tax data. I think there's a total of 19 operating in the city. There's 6 in Ward 1, and again, these are just the ones that we were able to identify as operating just because we have data that's conclusive in that regard. It doesn't mean that the behavior isn't happening more off the books, shall I say. But of the ones that are known definitively, 6 are in Ward 1, 3 are in Ward 2, 4 are in Ward 3, 6 are in Ward 4. And they range the gamut. If you're looking at the assessed fair market value of the properties, they range from a high of $463,000 and to about $382,000. Those are sort of at the top. There's 4 of those. Those all claim owner occupancy credit, by the way. As you go down there, you don't see the owner occupancy credit, meaning it's an LLC or some non-resident is operating the facility. So in the $200,000 to about $291,000 range, you'll see 5 of those. Again, only one of those claims owner occupancy credit. Of $161,000, approximately $190,000, we've got 5 of those. 1 claims owner occupancy credit. There's a condominium at $91,000 up to $152,000, 4 of those, and none of them claim owner occupancy credit. And that does not include an apartment complex, which apparently is engaging in short-term rentals as well. So they're all over the place. They're not necessarily where you would associate with. There's a couple up by the lake. It's probably as detailed as I can get. Those are obviously at the higher end of the price range, as you can imagine. But they tend to be sort of in random locations. There's no pattern to it. It's just an LLC or maybe a homeowner just decided that they were going to engage in this commercial activity for some period of time. And whether or not that informs your decision process moving forward, I have no idea. I'm just saying it seems like there's no pattern, nothing discernible, and that it's being responsive to any specific market need. A lot of these properties are fairly modest, and the few are quite nice, but they're more towards the modest end of the price screen. It's not a value judgment. I'm just saying what the assessed fair market value is. These tend to be rental properties by most definitions. You could see if they weren't doing short-term rentals, likely they're investment properties, and so there'd be a landlord-tenant relationship. So that's really top of the order, I think, is what at the end of the day is the policy if they are to be permitted, and then you decide how best to have that policy materialized. We can certainly state pretty definitively if you're looking to grow the tax base, this is a waste of time. It's not going to grow the tax base in any appreciable way. If it's satisfying a market need, don't really know what that is, quite frankly. Again, these are odd locations. Some are on side streets. Some are in areas that you wouldn't necessarily associate with more commercial activities. Nearby some type of gathering place, a party center, recreational facilities, and things of that nature. They don't seem to cluster in any specific way. And again, you have some that perhaps raise some questions, like do you really want an apartment building engaging in the business of short-term rentals? One is in a condominium complex, as noted. Now, generally, the condominium declarations would prohibit that activity. Also, another thing to factor in, most of our newer HOAs prohibit short-term rentals. And so if you're looking at particularly newer developments and things of that nature, it's fairly normal that this commercial activity would be prohibited there. So make of that what you will. Again, it's just another data point for you. So we're also seeing lately that a lot of communities are trying to figure out how do we roll back these regulations. You've probably read some headlines related to the city of Cleveland and how they're trying to roll them back a bit. Recently, just I think in the past week, the city of Eastlake and Mayfield Heights just flat out prohibited them and criminalized the behavior. That doesn't mean that all cities do that or all villages will do that. Also, real top of the order is the General Assembly currently has in committee the idea that they're going to pass some state statutes that will try to not just regulate short-term rentals, but potentially strip local control. The current proposal would grandfather in, so to speak, existing regulations so that if a community prohibits them, the state statute would not attempt to preempt that ordinance. I think it's a bit more fuzzy if you have a ordinance which permits them, and whether or not the quote-unquote grandfathering in would survive that. We also get into an issue then as to whether or not state statute would be controlling relative to future amendments of a local ordinance. My best judgment on that is you'd have to come into conformity with state statute. I'll just tell you right now, as law director, my recommendation is that no action be taken until the dust settles in Columbus and we see exactly what may come out of there. There's frankly just no rush. If the desire is to move forward, though, we certainly should be mindful of what's going on in Columbus as you move through this process. But writing laws is easy, quite frankly, if you know what the end goal is. Most people are familiar with criminal laws, of course. Don't do this, do that, or else. In zoning, we've always had a little bit more of a difficulty, of course, as you're all familiar with. There's a little bit of judgment and architectural review and site development. You know, should traffic go this way or should they go the other way around the building? That you're all used to. Most folks are a little less familiar with permitted uses or conditionally permitted uses. They tend to think that, like other types of laws, if it doesn't say I can't do something, that means I can. They don't understand that zoning codes are written in a permissive language, meaning you can only do what it says you can do. And that we understand. There are maybe some good faith actors out there who establish short-term rentals in the city, not quite understanding the vagaries of the code. They should understand that now, and those behaviors should have all ceased by now, because they are unlawful, definitively. So, the ordinance that I provided to you, and I'll just share if I can impose on your patience a little bit more. Just an example, I just want to give you a case study, which is another community on which I'm the law director, which is Madison Village. It prohibited short-term rentals. But it has a lot of historic resources out there, and a lot of those older homes, you'll learn if you're out there long enough, are incredibly expensive to maintain. They're pretty much sieves in the winter. The hot air just goes out every little crevice of the building, and they're incredibly expensive to maintain. And yet, obviously, as most communities, they find extreme value in those historic resources and making sure they're maintained. So a very nice couple had invested in a historic structure and a historic home, unknowingly had put a lot of money into renovating it, and although it was owner-occupied, they were gone for extended periods of time, and so they wanted to try to pay off some of the costs and expenses of maintaining this, and so they started to do the short-term rental. We went into enforcement with them. They abided by the order, but they created an interesting dialogue, which is how valuable this could be to help with historic preservation, and ultimately that moved the needle and it facilitated discussions. And Madison Village, did decide to permit them in very limited areas. As leverage for historic preservation. Now, that has nothing to do necessarily with Mentor. In other communities, say the city of Columbus, there's a whole department of short-term rentals or whatever they call it. You just go in there, you pull a permit. It's citywide to my eyes. So now, what policies is that facilitating? Obviously, Columbus officials believed it satisfies a market need for them, and so be it. So you've got really, really wide ends of that spectrum. What might be right for Mentor is the reason I wanted to, in my very long-winded way as usual, wanted to try to get some thought processes, get some discussion going, And again, I strongly advise you just don't get out in front of your skis and say, here's an idea, vote it up or down. I think that's premature in my judgment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? So
Dave.
from the two examples we have, independent of the conditions that each of them present, it looks like the one is controlled by an application process and permit through the city permitting process. The other is approved through the conditional use permit process. That's the big difference I saw between the two of these examples. And I'm
It's a
using the term
difference, right?
examples.
And again, I do think to your point, Mr. Rossetti, it's real top of the order
Yeah.
as to if they're permitted, what would be the legal mechanism for that? Because on the one hand, they come in, you get your administrative permit, you leave. That though would preclude an adjacent property owner who may have exceptions to a short-term rental being located next to them or across the street from having any voice in that process. So that would be a downside to that if it's a fair characterization calling it a downside.
Okay, yeah, and that was, again, my point here is one allows for the public input on the conditional use permit side, and the other does not. So, again, on the presumption that if we were to move forward, these would be two examples. Okay.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga?
Talking about like data points, like information about numbers and characteristics and values and stuff like that. Do we have any information about the performance of previous or existing short-term rentals relative to legal issues, police interactions, complaints that have been formalized in some fashion? Is there anything, because some people say, oh, this is horrible, horrible how, measurable how. Is there really been a problem when we talk about the previous performance?
I'd have to work with the PD records and have them run reports on what we know to be short-term rentals that have been operating in the city. Now, there are some that I think we're aware of that, regardless of how I learned this information, they may have come onto the radar screen. Whether or not we would run reports for them, I don't really know the answer. I don't really have a list of the ones who have not been compliant with various tax liabilities.
Yeah, I mean, my interest is in just broadening the data points you have to review this on. If this is perceived to be a problem initiating condition, then that would influence us and the council in one way or another. And if it's really not a problem, then that's also, a point to consider. Because many people react like, oh, I don't want that next to my house, or I don't want that in my neighborhood because of all these perceived problems, but I don't know that any of those problems exist, so.
Calls for service, can be underreported, I guess, to, not to, yes, it is a good, but calls for service can be underreported. And then there's the intangible, which we can't quantify, which is, again, you invested in a nice quiet cul-de-sac here in the city of Mentor. You've been there for decades, and now the house next to you or across the way has been converted to a species of commercial use. What does that say about the reasonable expectations of that homeowner and who've invested in? So those are the intangibles, though. But I don't think you. And again, some of the higher level policy choices. Yeah.
I understand.
So one idea then is rather than have them in wherever is there specific areas in the city where it would make sense to have that investment, have that ability available, and would perhaps minimize any adverse secondary effects, knowing that if it's successful, you're going to have individuals in and out very frequently. Cleaning crews might come in, and you know, you're going to have it's a species of commercial use. It might be quiet, hopefully, but nonetheless, you're going to have a species of commercial use right next to you. There may be areas of the city where that would not be necessarily so out of character, as opposed to other areas of the city where it would be very, very much out of character. Again, I'm not going to suggest where those might be. We have seen short-term rentals where we've had to enforce in some of the commercial districts, the older commercial districts, where we have some of those older historic structures. We see them popping up sort of randomly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Mr. Zeman, has there ever been, to your knowledge, any community who put this up to a vote of the people to say if they wanted these in their city?
I don't know. I don't have any knowledge on that one way or the other.
'Cause in my head, I'm looking at this going, you know, we put it to a vote of the people when we do a zoning change of some sort. There's certain ones that we have to put on the ballot. And this is a commercial use in a residential area. And I think the people would want a voice in that. The same with what Mr. Rossetti said. I think a CUP is important because you want the neighbors to know. I would want to know. And if we went the permit process, I think at least the letter to the neighbors would be recommended to inform everybody what's going on. So that's my 2 cents.
To answer your question, council could, if it chooses, put it on for referendum.
Okay.
It's not mandatory, but it could.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else? I looked at the one that was sent. We were all at that work session, I think most of us here. And the only thing that I really had was, you know, I don't know how this is going to shake out, but if there's a list, you know, a per ward list, I just think that list should be transparent. And it should be a Menor resident that owns property that's doing a short-term rental should have list priority. Because when we had public hearings, what we heard over and over was, I live in the city. These are down the street from my house. I take care of them. So I'm not saying either way, but I would like to see that, just like when you sign your kids up for a camp. If you live in the city, you have list priority. And that would give, and if the list was transparent, that would give maybe a future investor that may want a short-term rental, they might look at this per ward list and go, you know, there's 30 Menor residents ahead of me. I live in Madison. So I wouldn't make this investment and do this. So I don't really know how that language would work, but that's just something that if council decides to go with some sort of short-term rental, that I would like to see the list be transparent and have it be a priority for people that live in Menor.
So, in other words, individuals who would, that would be their primary residence.
No, if they own a house in Menor, but they also want to operate a short-term rental, they live in Menor.
Oh, I see.
So they would have priority on the list, just like when you sign your kid up for volleyball camp, right? And you get 2 weeks before non-Menor residents before they sign up. And that list be transparent to where people could see, you know, who's ahead of me or where I am on the list. I mean, it was just a thought, and like I said, I just kind of dug into the one that was sent down to us that, you know, I don't know how council's going to decide whether they want to allow short-term rentals or not, but if they do, I think it should be a benefit for a Menor resident first.
Well, obviously, the reason it's in front of the planning commission and frankly should stay here until such time as you feel that you've reached a majority consensus as to should they be permitted, yes or no, what's the recommendation there? And if the answer to that is yes, where, how many, and then we can get deeper into regulations.
I think there's, like you say, there's a lot to think about and to work through.
Well, and that's why I'm suggesting it's virtually impossible to come up with tailored regulations to achieve unknown policy objectives when we're talking about land use. So that's the top of the order, I think, because I think as already discussed here, well, there might be policy objectives which say they should be subject to a CUP, or there might be policy objectives which say, no, that's not necessary. An administrative application, first come, first serve is fine. There may be policy objectives which say, well, they should be owner occupied, and so people who are, maybe snowbirds can lease them out under short-term rental basis over the winter. Or, to the chairman's point, maybe there should be some method to grant priority access for those permits to other subset of investors. But obviously, the regulations, you can't even start on them until some of those decision points are reached.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Harder.
I may be repeating myself a little bit, but responding to the comments that the chairman made, one of the purposes in doing this, I would guess, would be to create a positive financial return and a benefit to the city. Now, it may be marginal as to how much the fees are and the taxes and stuff, but that the positive side of this would be that and I like the idea of Mentor residents benefiting financially by going ahead with this in some form or another. I still need to see the negative side and quantify that somehow, so that I can see the cost benefit, or between allowing something to go forward that has a benefit to the community, to know what the negative is in some fashion, to balance, to see how you want to create that policy. And again, it's kind of nebulous right now. I don't even know to what degree this is a financial benefit to someone. I mean, maybe I understand it in terms of gaining a fee for staying in a place. But what you kind of alluded to, the negative, which is the community, the neighbors, the police calls, the criminal activity. Is there a balancing weight of financial on this side, socially disruptive on this side? That would be the items in order to make policy. You somehow have to balance those, or at least control the negative, promote the positive, and that's just my thought. Thank you.
Well, obviously, what you're seeing in larger communities like Cleveland, the reason it's trying to rein in some of those regulations is because it's seen the negative in other communities as well. Given Mentor's size, we're fairly lucky relative to our crime index here. It's a very, very safe community, thanks to exceptional law enforcement and as well as the community and business community as well that's alert to any problems. So, you never necessarily want to create a situation where you've opened the door and then have to figure out how to close it. As to tax revenue from these, that's one of the things on the table in Columbus is because tax policy is a matter of statutory law, period. And so while currently a local lodging tax can be amended under current Ohio law to include short-term rentals, it appears there's some discussion on that as well in Columbus. So what does that mean? Usually it means, and I don't work for them, so I don't really care. Usually it means they're going to reach into the municipalities' pockets and try to take that money down to Columbus for their own uses.
Sounds right.
Yeah, they can sue me.
So your recommendation would it just be to table this?
No, my recommendation is just an open discussion. Is it a good idea, a bad idea? And again, to be fair, some communities have said this suits a market need, and are those areas that they have a lot of tourism, and therefore bringing tourists into the community and finding sufficient housing accommodations, both and wide spectrum, transient housing accommodations is important to their economic life. Absolutely. So you're going to have communities in the United States that would fully embrace short-term rentals because it fits very well into their economic picture. And other communities, you have to wonder what exactly does it do, if anything, and if it opens the door to even a mild nuisance, or even the perception amongst someone who owns their home and feels that they have a certain expectation relative to the activities that'll take place in their single-family neighborhood. What does that do to that? Doesn't necessarily mean that something bad is going to happen. Again, just trying to be sensitive that we are an older community, demographically speaking, and so there is something to take into consideration relative to the sensitivities of some of our seniors, and potentially having this type of commercial use next to them. It's not a question of something bad happening. It's just a question of the fear, and so again, I don't know if anyone. I mean, I don't mean to overgeneralize that every senior would have an issue with this, or every non-senior would have an issue with this, but it would be different.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Crocker.
So, right now, this is illegal in this city, right? I mean,
It always has.
it always has been. Right, it always has been. But when you started out, you said that there were, you looked really quickly and you found 20 of these things available. So I guess my point would be that even if, regardless of what the city does, if we say, hey, this is continuing to be illegal, it's still going to happen. And then if we really want to enforce that, don't we have to go out and shut these places down? And that will cost tax dollars to say, hey, you can't do this here anymore, and we are going to enforce that in some way.
Well, we've been doing that for years.
Okay, but doing it for years, and yet you still had 20 of them that were out there today.
Well, that data came from another governmental source.
Okay, but my point being that from my opinion, I think this is going to happen no matter what. So I think that we should regulate it in some way, and that's my opinion. Maybe we could shut it down in some other way, but I think it's just so common that someone is going to do this, and so my opinion is we should have some type of regulation, whatever it may be, moving forward. We should have that discussion of how we are going to regulate it.
People are going to violate. It doesn't matter what the law says. People are going to violate it. So, and we've got code enforcement who are out there with 2,000 cases last year. What was the number?
Do we want
2,000.
code enforcement to weigh in? Do you have any any opinions on
But
this?
we don't tell people to tear out their front grass because some people won't cut it and let it get too high. So your point's well taken, Mr. Crocker. But we're pretty good at enforcement.
Okay.
There's unenclosed dumpsters.
Anything else?
If the commission wants to sort of, digest a little bit till your next meeting, that's fine.
Maybe
If there's
receive some data, what Mr. Varga was looking for?
we'll see what we can do relative to some call reports. Now, one of the things I do want to underscore, though, some of these are sort of not always straightforward. So you may have someone with an investment property. They're not necessarily always using short-term rentals. They may periodically enter into lease agreements, be it monthly, 6 months, whatever it might be. So, so some of these properties, to my eyes, they may be using short-term rentals as a way to get around Ohio landlord-tenant law. I don't know that for a fact, but were we to do a deeper dive, some of it, that's my suspicion on some of them. And some may be very lawfully doing lease agreements for their tenants. So you get a little bit of a mixed bag, I think. It's not an all or nothing, I think, in some of these people who are, some of these owners, I should say, that are engaging in this behavior.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga.
Following along with what you were just saying, is there any discernible demarcation between short-term and lease situations? I mean, can you write a lease for 2 weeks?
Yeah, actually you can.
You can.
Yeah, Ohio would recognize a weekly lease. No one's going to do that. It's
Well, no, I mean,
You'd be-
I guess what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
and not just for my own information, but for possibly the people who are watching, to understand what's the limitation? How long can you make it a long-term or a short-term lease before it becomes something different, or a short?
Well, that's something where anecdotally, I think some owners are really in an interesting position because they purport to do short-term rentals for terms that last for many months. So they've got occupants there. It certainly doesn't sound like a transient accommodation. It sounds like it's a place of residence for an extended period of time, and yet they seem to be potentially circumventing Ohio landlord-tenant law, and it is important law because it provides important legal protections and due process protections to tenants who have a leasehold interest in their property. So to the extent, we hear anecdotally that the quote-unquote short-term rental is being occupied by guests for a very, very extended period of time, I have to question and would definitely scratch the surface of the idea that it's a short-term rental. To answer your question, short-term rental by definition is transient, meaning less than 30 days.
30 days. Thank you.
Seeing nothing? So we'll just kind of
Sure,
digest
there's no-
everything, yeah?
I mean, there's nothing for us to do.
There's nothing for us.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
And we'll see what we can do to get some additional data.
Yeah, right, just something.
to-
Larry, do you have anything?
I don't have anything. I don't know if Tom has anything since he's here or if Kayla has anything, but I have nothing.
Kayla, anything? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.